when I start, I've taken my brakes off correctly. I'm holding the mailon with one hand. I can see this is perfectly flat. Normally we would do all of the risers, so you can see from the carabiner all out to the mailon, it's perfectly flat. When I take my brake off, if this was wrapped around under here, you'd see that. If it was around a line, for example, you'd see that. Right. So the whole idea behind taking the brake off cleanly, now I've wrapped it around
to be clear,
another line, is that it's perfectly clear. Because unless this webbing is flat, you won't be able to tell if you've got something wrapped around. So don't just reach down and pull the brake off. No good, right? Same with this side. I'm in reverse position now, but my left hand can reach out and hold the mailons here, the metal bits. And this is your flat riser here. And you can see that I've taken the brake off cleanly here. Same idea, right? Again, visuals of examples as to why you have to FIA, fix it in the air, right?
Yeah.
We don't want any FIAs if we can. Oh,
it happens so far.
It's happening. So once we got this, we got our risers flopping over each other. We're fair with that? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take the left risers and we're going to throw them over the right risers. And see how I've kind of got my thumb here to get those out of the way for a minute?
Yeah.
Conveniently waiting for me is the A's. Now take a look at what those A's look like when I'm like this. You can see them. You know, yes, I can grab them. I can reach and grab them right now. But this throwing this riser over really lets me make damn sure that I can clean. Now, if you can see from the down the line to the wing, there's nothing on top of these. Look at the wing for a second. Yeah, see, there's nothing on top of the A's. The A's are clear to the wing. Super important. Then, if I look over here, these A's are ready to come up, and they're also clear to the wing. So there's nothing on top of them. If I was to grab my A's and I bring them up, and say, for example, there's something on top of the A's, we don't want that, right? We don't want to launch with that. We wouldn't put the A in the left hand and launch with that. No, we don't want that. We want to manipulate it so that we grab the A's and there's nothing on top of them. Okay, so let's do that again. Brakes have been taken off correctly. Throw the left risers over. Grab the A's.
The thumb.
Grab the A's.
They're on top.
A's are into the left hand.
Okay.
Now normally all I have to do is bring this knuckles to knuckles, and I could launch like this if I wanted to once I have something of a wall. A wall means it's perfectly flat all the way across. And if you have a high side, what happens if we have a high side? We walk to the high side.
To the high side, yes.
Make it even, right? Let me just hear something about each one of you guys that are here today. Sir, what is your name, where are you from, and how did you learn about the sport?
My name's Jordan. I'm from Burnaby, BC.
Nice to meet you, Jordan.
Yeah, how did I learn about this sport? I guess I like hiking, but I
Cool.
don't like hiking down. So I like hiking up the mountain, not down it, and then figured out, hey, there's this thing called hike and fly, and you do it from paragliding, and decided maybe I should look into this.
A lot of people come at it from that angle, and you know what? There's a lot of companies that are out there now that are specifically making that gear for people like yourself that can enjoy this for, you know, so many years to come now. And over the last 20 years, these wings have become more proficient, more safe, more stable, more bulletproof, and you're getting into it at a perfect time. You know, 2017, we are literally benefiting from 25, 30 years of development, and today we stand here with a ton of gear that's super safe, and as long as you follow the rules of the air, rules of you know, paragliding in general, you're going to have an amazing life, still running off mountains after hiking up them at 90 years old.
Sounds good.
Nice to meet you, Jordan. And this person here, I believe his name is Marshall?
Yes, my name is Marshall.
Hello, Marshall. What do you do for a living, and how did you learn about this sport?
Yeah, I'm a massage therapist. Learned about the sport the same way my brother did. Just want to go up mountains, don't want to come down them so much.
Very cool.
The idea of flying down, and thought about base jumping for a while, but I like the idea of actually taking a bit more time coming down and flying instead of just falling.
Fantastic. I've had flights that lasted over 5.5 hours in the air, so that 1 hour climb up will seem like nothing after you've landed. Well done, guys. And you guys are brothers. Nice to meet you. Yes. Thanks for coming to enjoy what quite possibly will be the best part of your life. It certainly is mine. Once it's in your veins, you will be in the attic forever. This is not a sport, this is an addiction. This gentleman down here, I believe his name is Scott.
Hello, yes.
How are you doing, sir?
Awesome.
Cool, buddy. What do you do for a living, and how do you...
I do
how
road
do you
work.
find paragliding?
I do road work.
Cool.
Formerly an instructor for transports. And,
So I guess you're looking at the sky all the time, being out there.
I started out in helicopters 2
Nice.
years ago, but I didn't go into the career. Did different directions, and decided I wanted to get back into flight, so I looked at all the options.
Fantastic.
And I actually tried a little each one, and it came down to this is the best bang for the buck. It's the most diverse because I'm doing a combination of my P2 as well as powered. paragliding because where I live is, I'm back in Sudbury, Ontario, and we just don't have the beautiful mountains, so I don't get to climb. I need power to get up there
Nice.
and play.
Cool.
But I wanted the option to travel without the motor and fly, and I also knew that learning to fly just the wing first was far more logical and safe than just jumping on a paramotor and learning with the motor. So I got canopy control first.
Brilliant.
Now I'll do the motor.
Fantastic. That's great. You're getting a whole rounded
Yeah.
view of the sport and the education. So the way we think as a paragliding pilot is slightly different than the way we think as a paramotor pilot, but they do have a ton of stuff that crosses over. And of course, you know, launching safely, landing safety, getting that all nice and polished first before putting another element in the equation, which would be the motor, the different weight, the different wing. Fantastic. Nice to meet you, Scott. Thanks for coming out today. And my name is Degas from Vancouver, Canada, and I've traveled all around the world on cruise ships as an art auctioneer. I know you wouldn't imagine me in a three-piece suit right now, but that's a large reason why I seen the sport, because one day I got off the ship and went for a hike in Taronga, New Zealand. I look up behind Mount Maunganui and I'm like, what the heck is that? There's a guy hanging from a kite and he's staying up there for quite a long period of time. So first thing that blew me away about the sport is how this is possible without any sort of electricity, any motor, any reason for propulsion. And the gentleman that was walking up the hill with the pack on his back, I said, what is this? He says, it's paragliding. I said, okay, hang on a second. I mean, I've never even heard of this before. This was like, you know, early 2007. We've got the hang glider, which is the metal frame. We have the sack of potatoes behind the boat, which is parasailing. So this is paragliding, and it works all by the idea of lifting air to fly in. So we're going to find out today exactly how and why this thing works, and then we're going to transfer this information onto you guys for real as we take you up to the training hill today, and then we're going to eventually, once you're solid with the equipment, get you off the mountain starting at 2,200 feet at Mount Woodside here in the Great Fraser Valley of Western Canada. So with no further ado, let me grab one of these colors and we'll get started. When I start doing a presentation for you guys, I want, first of all, I think the best quality of your time is spent is, we watched a video just now in regards to how a wing works, but let me just give you a little bit more focused on the actual paraglider. So I'm going to start with the airfoil, which is also known as the paraglider, which we refer to as a canopy, and you'll hear some people just referring to it as a wing, and it is exactly that, it's a wing. So in the 1500s, Da Vinci realized how the wing worked. It wasn't until later where Daniel Bernoulli came along and he gave us the equation of how it actually worked. And what we realized is that as molecules are coming towards the wing from the wing, sinking and sliding through the wing, we'll talk about that a little more in a second, it's interesting how this whole wing principle works. We have some molecules that are going along the bottom of the wing. We have some air molecules that split at the leading edge, and they travel across the top of the wing. The interesting point here is that the distance from where they separate and where they meet up again, and where they separate and where they meet up again, this distance is actually a little bit longer. So would you think that these molecules would actually have to spread out to make it across the top of that wing, knowing that they're actually going to be meeting up at the same place at the end of the wing? Yes, they would. Why? Because of the time difference it takes to get from the front to the back. And when they spread out, it creates lesser pressure. And when we have a lower pressure, I'll even write this in here so we can refer to it later. Lower pressure. Okay. It's a lower pressure than the pressure underneath it. I'm not going to put high pressure here, but it's a lower pressure than what's happening underneath, and that is what creates lift. Now, most of your lift is being created in the forward third of the wing. And in the last few years, we have also taken a little bit more microscopic look at what airflow is doing with smoke generation. And with a little white puff of smoke, we will actually see that there is lift generated through the entire wing. Most of the time, we would have thought that almost all the lift was being generated at the first forward third of the wing. And now with 100 frames per second, we're able to freeze frame a second color of smoke that's coming across like a little puff, and we're actually measuring that top layer is getting to the back of the trailing edge quicker than it is underneath, depending on the size of the angle of attack. Before we talk about angle of attack, I want to get into the actual lines in which the paraglider is equipped with. Up front, we have the A lines, and they are generally red, so I'm going to use that for those. The second lines are called the B lines, of course, and they meet up down on the risers. The third set of lines, I should say, are C lines. And the fourth one, I'll make them green. We're going to call these D lines. Now, in the modern paragliders, these C's and D's have actually been joined to one line, and they split halfway up. Some wings, and the older wings, and just so you guys get a visual reference, they have A's, B's, C's, and D's. And that's been pretty much it for the history of paragliding. We also have the very back trailing edge, which is your brake line. Okay, so trailing edge, leading edge, and your suspension lines. I'll put in here the names. A's, B's, this will become important later, C's, D's, and brakes. Excellent. So far so good. Okay, let's talk about cord line a little bit. As we've seen on the video, and I want to put on this video as well because this will be sent off to new pilots coming into the system. We have a center point at the tip of the trailing edge. We're going to connect that center point of the tip of the trailing edge straight up through the middle of the airfoil out into an imaginary space, an imaginary area. That's not very straight, but you get the idea. Then we have a second line, which is your airflow this way, as well as your glide path this way. And I believe it was Marshall that's had the previous paragliding or skydiving experience. Jordan, sorry. In skydiving, did they talk much about the glide path at all?
Not a ton. You do learn about it, but yeah, it's quite steep.
Okay, so ours isn't as steep. We have I'll talk a little bit more glide ratio about the actual glide path shortly, but I just want to see if I can get myself a straighter line here.
Nice.
That's better.
Much better.
Concentration. Okay, so this is called the cord line. All right. The difference between the cord line and the airflow line, or the glide path, this is called your angle of attack. I need a smaller pen. Okay, so if we're flying our paraglider and our hands are up, we're not influencing the brakes at all. This is called trim speed. So hands up equals trim speed which equals best glide in still air. Okay, pretty fair? Awesome. In the world of paragliding, you guys are pretty much the same height, same size. Scott's going to have one size, a little lady might have a different size. All these different sizes are calculated so that these machines are made for you in various sizes based on your weight. So what is the weight of, how does the weight thing work with the paraglider? Okay, so say for example, if I was to take Jordan and I was to put his helmet, his boots, his gloves, his water, everything he's going to fly with, and his helmet, and his glider, and his harness, and we're going to put all of that onto a scale, the whole thing. Okay, that number, that kilogram weight, all up, is the number for the middle of the weight range of that wing. Okay, so it's your weight plus all of everything that you're flying with. Say for example, we're medium guys here, and that our all-up weight, for example, is 95. I'll just say that for point of reference. The wing that we would use for a medium, a little M here for medium, would be 85 kilograms. You can see this on your wing label, to 105. So our all-up weight is in the middle of that wing. Okay, a larger person, say for example their all-up weight is 105, well obviously their wing would be a 95 to a 115. Pretty fair? Alright, so we'll give that label large, give that label medium, and I'm going to say, let's pretend 75 is the all-up weight for a small, and we're going to go 60, our wing's going to be 65 to 85. That's a little person. So this thought pattern, in regards to how this flies its best, is when we are on the middle of the wing. Okay, it's always safe to fly a little heavier on the wing, but not as safe to fly lower on the wing. We'll get into that. Well, sure, why not? I can talk about it a little bit now. When you are low on your wing, the speed bar will be easier to press. Collapses will happen easier. It's not if we're going to get them, it's when we get them. When you get a little bit of a tuck, you'll get a warning. You'll actually hear the sound of the wind rushing down the side of the thermal. I'll give you a quick thermal description as well, so you can see how this works. Here's our launch. Okay, you can launch here. When you come out, these rocks are creating thermals, and on top of the thermal is a little cloud. On the inside of the thermal, the reason why it's going up is because it's hot. And it needs to be roughly 3 degrees hotter than the surrounding air for it to go up. And on the outside of the thermal, you have sinky air going down. When half of our wing is in the lifting air and half of our wing is in the sinking air, that's where you get your tucks. Okay, sometimes it's just a very slight loss of pressure. Other times, in larger lapse rate days, it will be a larger percentage of the wing. And as my instructor in New Zealand, Mr. Alan Hills, says, fly what you've got. So you're out there, you're launching, you're having a great cross-country flight, you happen to catch the front edge of the thermal, and you realize that you've got a collapse on one side, just lean to the good side with a very little bit of brake, fly through it, and carry on. If you're on the low end of the weight scale, you would expect collapses to happen easier. They will come out longer. It'll take longer for them to come out. Yes, the speed bar will be easier to press. Your big gears will be easier to pull in. We're going to talk about more about that shortly. And your turns will be very lethargic. It's going to be hard to turn. And you're also risking stall. Man, there's so much I want to get to you guys. This is going to be great. On the higher end of the weight range of a wing, things will be more dramatic. You'll be able to carve turns a lot easier. You're going to be able to cut through penetration. So for example, when high wind concerns start coming in, yes, you'll be able to cut through them quicker. You're going to have to run faster on launch. You're going to have to land faster. On the lower end of the weight scale, obviously you run slower off of launch and you'll land slower. But it's safer to be in the middle or higher. So I think we've talked enough about that. We get the idea. Is there any questions on that a little bit? Okay, cool. All right, let's go to the next section, and we are going to talk a little bit more about the speeds and how this whole thing works. So, a safe angle of attack is the way it's been made. It's flying at its absolute best. Your hands up, trim speed, best glide, and still air is the best this machine can fly at. If by chance you have some trees down here, I'll draw some more trees. Okay, and the wind's starting to pick up, and you're concerned about your penetration, which is our forward ground speed, generally with no wind, you'll easily be able to fly across and miss those trees. Now I'm going to add a 20 km/h headwind into the equation. Okay? When we're flying out over the trees, your glide may be diminished because of the headwind. This machine, paraglider, airfoil, it sinks at roughly 1.2 meters per second. That's all it does. It sinks about this much per second in still air, not lifting and not sinking. It has a glide angle of approximately 8 to 1 on your first gliders. 8 to 1. So that means for every 8 feet forward, you're going 1 foot down. Pretty fair? 8 to 1. The new modern gliders now, the ENC gliders, getting 95-1, and some of the two-liners Ozone has recently made are actually getting a 10-1 glide. So these things are just getting really super proficient. The ones we're going to put you on at the beginning of your course will be 8-1, a nice, safe, comfortable glide. So, in regards to your actual glide, earlier in the day, before the wind picks up, you'll clearly be able to make it up to your landing area. Later on, if you need to make those trees, what's your best hand position to get across the trees?
Hands up.
Hands up. Exactly. Well done. Thanks, buddy. If you're in the jostle part of the hill, which is usually a thermal, thermals are associated with the rocks that are on the mountain itself. This is where you're going to find a lot of your jostle associated with the mountain. I mean, there's multiple thermals out there, some small, some bigger. I want you guys to get through the jostle first before you think about going hands up. If you go hands up, it's a little easier for the sinky side of the thermal to push your tips in. When you put a little bit of pressure on, it makes them a little bit stable. And this is where it gets a little bit more exciting. We're going to call this weight of arms equals safe pressure. Okay, so this hands up, trim speed, best glide in still air, in the middle of your weight range is roughly 37 kilometers an hour. And that's airspeed. So we're going to talk about airspeed. We're going to talk about wind speed. We're going to talk about ground speed. What are they and what's the difference? So, weight of the arms, safe brake pressure equals about 35 kilometers an hour. You can start to see now that as we're adding some brake, we're slowing the glider down. We actually have control of its airspeed. Pretty fair? Let's move this one more down, and let's go to what's called min sync. Min sync is short for minimum sync, and that can be anywhere from, I'm going to say 28 kilometers an hour to say 34. Okay, so what is min sync? Min sync is the weight of your arms on your brakes. Here's your brake problem. So it's the weight of your arms and then just a little bit more. Okay? That keeps the molecules spreading out even more, creating more lift. So what that's going to do to the trailing edge is it's going to bring it down slightly. So now it looks more like that. What do you think that's going to do to the chord line?
It's going to change it and angle it up.
Exactly. So if I take my chord line now, I'll use the same chord line, not sure. If I take my chord line now and I go from the tip of the trailing edge through the center of the airfoil, I guess I can do better than that. That's better. Okay. What happens to our angle of attack?
It increases as well.
It increases. Exactly. So, yes, still a very safe angle of attack. Min sync is great because when you're in lifting air, you're slowing the glider down and you're making massive use of the lift. Okay, so when I'm in a thermal, I've got a fair amount of brake on this side. I'm leaning to the side I want to turn it on. I have a bit of a feather pressure here normally, but now once I'm going in good thermals, I'll add just a little bit more pressure on the outside of my outside wingtip, putting me into more of a min sync attitude. So I'm making more use of the lifting air by spreading the molecules across the top even a little bit more, by adding a higher angle of attack and creating more lift, as we've seen on the diagram earlier before this video. Exciting stuff? So let's go one step further. And we are going to go to, okay, I'll just do it again. Why not? Between 28 kilometers an hour down to about 21, 21.5 kilometers an hour. This is known as your stall speed. Remember, all of these, we're talking about airspeeds. So these airspeeds, 37, 35, 28 to 34 on average, 21.5. This is the slowest airspeed that this airfoil is manufactured to fly at, given you're in the middle of the weight range. If we physically ask this to fly lower or slower than 21.5 kilometers an hour airspeed, what's going to happen to the paraglider?
It's gonna collapse.
A collapse is when they get tucked in, up front, generally by the downside of the thermal.
It's gonna stall.
It's going to stall. And thank you very much for yelling out, bro. I'm glad you're getting involved because that's on part of my experience here. Keep everybody awake. Excellent. It's going to stall. It's going to simply fall out of the sky. You're going to turn into a bag of laundry for a moment. And we purposely do that with these on SIV courses. We'll bring it up in a controlled environment over a lake with a boat down below, flotation device, hook knife, 2 radios, and we'll purposely stall the paraglider so that we can put it through anything and everything it's going to go through in normal life. And when you get back to flying after that, you're going to feel so in control. And the tiniest little clap, you're just going to literally laugh at it and go, whatever, I can deal with that. You know, so easy. Just lean to the good side, fly away from the trees. You'll be fine. Do we ever want to gamble getting close to stall?
No.
No. Generally, no. Unless you are purposely wanting to do it. And that's another whole test and equation and level of flying. We call it the reset. So when, if you've got the height and you've got a big cravat for whatever reason, and you're into a spiral and you want to reset, we will purposely stall the wing, providing you've got lots of height, and it'll reset everything. You'll fly away perfectly fine. In the SIV courses, they will talk about how the wing has to be in front of you after you release from a full stall to get it flying again. And it's perfectly fine. It's a bit dramatic. It's exciting. Get your heart going. But it's all part of the safety of the sport. So yeah, so generally, guys, when we get out there, I want to see nice, confident figure 8 turns, and I'll show you in the simulator how to do that. But we don't want to ever gamble with getting too close to the stall speed. Okay, pretty fair? All right, next section. Let's talk about the actual forces on the wing and why this whole thing works the way it does. We happen to have 4 forces on the wing. Well, I've already given you one, which is the airflow into the canopy. This airflow is distributed throughout the canopy, of course, through the leading edge. We'll show you on the paragliders outside when we'll get you guys set up. The airflow initially comes into the leading edge, and then it gets distributed from the middle of the wing out to the tips through what are ports through the ribs, little holes, and they supply the wing tips with pressurized air. How does the air get pressurized? Well, the forces are what's down here.
The weight of your body.
Great, gravity. Thank you, sir. Okay, Jordan, you can start yelling stuff out at any time. He knows this next one.
He's beating me.
That's good. What do we have behind the wing?
Drag.
Drag. Thanks, Scott. Very good. So back here we have drag. And we have the airflow pressurizing the wing. And the resultant is?
Lift.
Yes, lift. And in the textbooks it says there's a 90-degree angle from the glide to where the lift is being created. So I'm going to try to give you a 90-degree angle there. But essentially what we realize is the entire airfoil is creating lift. Most of it is in your forward third of the wing. Okay guys, any questions thus far? Doing pretty good? If we're in a thermal or we're in ridge lift, say for example you have the ocean down here, it's a nice ocean wave. We'll pretend the trees aren't there for a second. And we have lift coming in to the front of this cliff, creating lift. If we're sinking at 1.2 meters a second on average, So every second we're sinking about 1.2 meters. And the air that we're in, whether it be ridge lift or a thermal, is going up 1.2 meters a second. What's our glide now?
Level.
Level. We're no longer doing 8-to-1, we're now doing flat. Glide, flat along the horizon, per se. If we have our body of air, whether it be a thermal or ridge lift, going up at 1.3 meters a second, now what's happening?
0.1 meters second lift.
Yes, this is the beginning of the sounds of angels.
This is where it gets fun.
This is where it gets fun.
Yeah.
Thanks, God. Excellent. Now, what we want as cross-country pilots is we want to get really high in a thermal, and we want to go really far. So we want really a thermal that's going up 3-4 meters a second on average, because the equation is, even though the thermal is going up 3 to 4 meters a second, we're still sinking 1.2 through that body of air. So the equation is 4, take away 1.2 would be?
2.8.
You would actually see your varial. Oh, you'd hear your varial. The varial part is the beeping part. You'd actually see your altimeter up front reading going up 2.8. Nice. And as long as you stay in that thermal, we can teach you that on another section of the course of how to stay in the thermal, how to find it, how to recognize it. There's all sorts of great stuff coming your way. Yeah, we want to stay in that and to get to the very top of the thermal. It's a free gas tank of lift. And then once you're at the top and you're not going up in it anymore, you go on what we call your glide. And that's when we go back to our still air, which is the 8-to-1 glide. As you're leaving the thermal, remember there will be a little bit of sink associated with it. So this hard-earned effort that you've put so much effort into spending, however long it took you to get to 6,000, 7,000 feet, and you go and you're sinking a little bit, I even turn my sink alarm off because sometimes I just don't want to hear that. But yeah, so you go on your glide, you enjoy yourself. In Australia, my personal best thus far was 68 kilometers, and I was on the Rush 2, I wasn't. It was after that I got my Swift 2. And I went 68 kilometers in one direction, but I didn't do it all in one glide. I would glide for maybe 5 or 10 kilometers, and then I'd grab another thermal from 3,000 feet, go back up to 6,000, 6,500, and then I'd go on my glide again. And there's all sorts of stuff going on down there that'll teach you how to look for, and also the clouds themselves. When you're below 3,000 feet, fly the train. When you're above 3,000 feet, fly the clouds. There's so much I want to get into, but let's get through the basics first and get you guys started today with your first experience on the wing. Okay, so we have drag, we have lift, we have gravity, we have airflow. We have our sink rate we've talked about lifting air versus sinking air. We've talked about hand position, getting across trees when we need to. We all know now it's hands up. And the weight of the arms is what we normally fly with, and especially when you're getting jostled around a bit. Okay, so now we're going to move into another section, and it is called the movement of a wing. So, pitch, roll, yaw. Okay, guys, stand up for a second. I'm sorry, Bob. Bob's going to have to take a... Bob's the cat, by the way. Anyone who's watching the video, we have a community cat here. Nice to have. Okay, so everybody put their hands above their head like it's a paraglider. I want you to go this way, and I want you to say, this is pitch.
Pitch.
Okay, I want you to do this, and this is roll. Good. And what's this one?
Yeah.
There's your yaw. Yep. Okay, generally, when your wing comes up on launch, we never set our wing up in the direction of launch. We always set it up in the direction of the wind. So it might be 10 degrees either side or straight on. Generally speaking, that's what we're going to be okay with. And when you can sit down. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
That's a good way to stretch out before we go play in the field too.
Yeah, get some muscles going.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, if your wing is set up perfectly into wind, you have a really good chance of that wing coming up perfectly for its inflation. Sometimes a little thermal might pop off from the left or the right as the wing's coming up, and the wing then will yaw into the wind, and we'll get you under the center of the wing, so you have the cleanest, best chance of a perfect inflation every single launch. And and I'm also going to show you 3 things we're going to do to the wing when we get out to the field, and may every launch be absolutely perfect. That's what we're aiming for. Okay, so pitch happens when we fly into the thermal. You're going to be flying along into the thermal. You're going to hit something that's it's coming up at a good velocity. It will pitch back, and what you're going to find is that as the wing is pitching back, you're going to swing forward. You might not notice it happening. You'll just sort of feel that things go a bit quiet. You won't hear the wind rushing past your ears so much, and you'll go, oh, that's my signal to take a peek up. Sure enough, as it's getting quiet, the wing will try to rush forward because now you're penduluming back. After you've went through the thermal, now you're into the body of the thermal. As it's coming forward, I want you guys just to give me a little bit more brake pressure. You You can go from weight of the arms down into min sync and then back up the weight of the arms again, perfectly safe, perfectly fine. But what that does is it stops the pitch of the glider coming too far forward. Okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to tell you the technical things that you have to do. Then you're going to get the feeling of what this is about. And the 4 stages of learning that we're going to go through, much like driving a car, learning how to ride a skateboard, riding a bike, it's all the same thing. Unconscious incompetence. We don't know what we don't know. You know, we've seen it, but we're not really sure how this whole thing works. Then there's conscious incompetence. Okay, now I see it close up, I can see it happening, but I know what I don't know. The third level of learning is conscious competence. So I know how to do it now, which is what we're going to get to at the end of today, but I have to really think about it. Okay, that's cool. That's the third level. And the fourth level, which is called
Unconscious competence.
unconscious competence. Well done. Yes. It's like autopilot, like driving a car. You don't think about it, it just happens. So why did you put the brakes down just a little bit as it was coming forward? Because it's part of your program. So we're going to start giving you the feeling of what's going on. We're going to start giving you habits of what's going on in a very safe and controlled manner. Later, these things are just going to automatically happen. And as we build on the days and the weeks in the course, and we get you guys more proficient in flying in stronger conditions, all these great, good habits are going to be with you for the rest of your flying career. So it's important that I watch every single step of the way, from taking off the brakes correctly, setting up your wing properly, you know, pitch control in the air. All these other things we're going to give you like it's gold. Roll generally happens when you've left a thermal, or you've put in too much opposite weight shift, or when you're getting seated and you're transferring both brakes into one hand. Sometimes there might be a little bit of uneven pressure. Okay? If it happens within a thermal environment, just hold your arms with the same brake pressure on both sides, and the roll will settle itself down. You know, later, once you're comfortable and getting good as a paragliding pilot, I'll teach you that as the wing is coming to your right, you can actually weight shift a little bit to your left to settle down the roll. But if that's done at the wrong time, you can accentuate the roll. So we're not going to push that right away. We're just going to say with a gentle brake pressure, it'll settle itself down. Why? Because we are our pendulum apparatus. Pretty fair? Okay, and of course, we've talked about yaw already, and sometimes a shear in wind direction. So you have one wind that's happening here at, say, 6,000 feet, another wind that's happening here at, say, 4,500 feet. Well, somewhere in there, there's going to be a bit of a shift in wind direction. You might find your wing decides to yaw a little bit. And the different class gliders, E and A is essentially where we all start off with our school gliders. We're going to move you guys into a low B, a little bit easier to turn, a little bit more activity in regards to being able to carve, you know, a little bit, turn a little easier into the thermals. E and C, much better glide, but wingtips like to stay in, for example. You have to kind of pump them out after big years. There's all sorts of levels of glider we're going to get you to. But the idea behind these A's that we're going to put you in, they're bulletproof. They literally handle all of this by themselves. They're very collapse resistant, and they fix themselves super quickly. So far, so good?
Okay.
Okay, guys, last part of this is going to be talking about the speeds. Airspeed, that is the paraglider itself without relationship to the ground, without relationship to the wind. If I have my hands up with this paraglider, and I'm in the middle of the weight range, approximately what is my airspeed?
37.
Okay, that's across the top of my paraglider. I like to say paraglider eyes closed. Okay, so no matter which way I go, in still air or with wind, could be hundreds of kilometers of wind. We don't know what we're in. But as long as my hands are up, no matter what's happening in my environment, my airspeed, hands up, is
37.
37. Okay, if I put a little bit of brake on my paraglider and I'm flying with my safe pressure of the weight of my arms, approximately what's my airspeed?
35.
35. Okay, now we're going to bring some wind into the equation. So if I give myself a, oh sorry, one thing before that, let's bring airspeed into ground speed now. So with no wind, either direction, and my hands are up all the way, and I'm gliding across the ground, what's my ground speed with no wind at all?
37.
37. And if I go this way, no wind at all?
37.
37. Okay, you see where this is going, right? I'm going to now put 10 kilometers an hour of wind in my face, and wind can be measured by stationary standing on the ground, putting up your wind meter, checking the wind speed, and you now can see there's a 10 kilometer an hour wind speed, but we can't do that in the air. If I hold my wind meter up, it's going to say 37. But now with the, hey Joe, welcome to a training session. Excellent. When I have 10 kilometers an hour of wind speed in my face, my airfoil, my paraglider, is still feeling 37 on its face, but what's my ground speed now?
27.
27. Cool, Jordan?
Yes.
Excellent, buddy. And Scott's Good with that? Cool, let's change the equation. Let's go this way, and I still have 10 kilometers an hour. Now we're gonna call it a tailwind. What's my ground speed? Hands up all the way.
47.
47. Great. What happens if that headwind becomes 37 kilometers an hour?
Zero ground speed.
I'm no longer going forward. It's called being parked. Parked. I'm parked in the sky. I'm not going forward. Is that a safe place to be?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Somewhere to land below you.
Exactly. So I'm looking back going, okay, I got my landing options are now going to be back there. Okay, so fields, you know, no cattle, watch for power lines, make sure it's nice and flat and even, stay away from crops, keep 20 bucks in your back pocket because those cabbages that you're going to about to step on, well, you just bought those cabbages. Hold your 20 bucks high, the farmer's coming at you. He's about to pick you up with his front loader and put you over the fence with you still in your gear after he gets your 20 bucks. I know we laugh about it, but it actually happens. In New Zealand, the guy will do that. Okay, let's keep on track here. Okay, so normally with high wind, we have a bit of bashiness. So the thermals are coming inland specifically. When we get higher wind, the wind will actually assist the thermals off the hill, and the thermals will come up and they'll have a bit more of a knife edge. So we don't really want to go hands up in high wind because you're kind of asking for those collapses to happen. We want to keep a little bit of safe pressure on when things are starting to blow, right? Because with stronger wind is stronger turbulence. Fair? If the wind is doing 37, and we know that we really have to keep a bit of turbulence on, or a bit of pressure on it to avoid the turbulence smacking us around, our wingtips around, and my hands are now doing 35, but the wind's doing 37, now what's my ground speed?
-2.
Minus 2, exactly. We're now going backwards. So do we ever want to gamble with high wind in this sport? No, because the wind will win. Okay, so we have a maximum 0 to 10 for forward launch. From 10 to 15 kilometers an hour is reverse launch. We're going to teach you guys all this stuff. And for your first year, I would really appreciate if you guys can get yourself your 1 meter and put it out on launch. And if it's gusting more than 15, then I'm going to say maybe it's time for beer o'clock. Or if you want to come back later in the day, usually in the Fraser Valley here, it will die down and mellow by 5:30, 6 o'clock. You'll start having less wind. The sun's going down. Rocks aren't being heated as much. Wind generally slows down. So it all depends on the day and the season. Springtime here for us in Western Canada is April, May. So that's the time when you're going to expect your big thermals. And that's when we're all doing our cross-country flights.